And speaking of those GM results, so every year before the start of the season, the NBA GMs are polled. They answer a bunch of questions. It's a huge survey about which teams they think are going to win the NBA title, or which player is going to win the MVP, or which player is the best defensive player. And they go through positions. There are a bunch of different categories. And so a couple days ago, they came out with the survey results about which teams are favored to pick that they would pick to win the NBA title and win the league MVP. So, and obviously the GMs can't vote for their own team; they have to vote for other teams. So the Brooklyn Nets were overwhelmingly selected as the favorites to win the NBA title. In fact, they had received 72% of the votes. The Lakers came in second at 17%. The Bucks came in third at 10%. Now, first of all, I don't really have a problem with any of these polls, and I kind of concur. I think that the Brooklyn Nets, with their complete cast of characters, should be the favorites, given that they've had experience playing with one another. It's the same core group of guys. Now, again, I just touched on Kyrie Irving's situation, and I think a lot of this hinges on whether or not he's there. But assuming that he is there for the entire season, then I think that it makes sense. I got no problems with the Brooklyn Nets being the favorites to win the NBA title. This is the interesting one. The guy who is predicted to win the league MVP is Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant, now, and it's not by a landslide, but Kevin Durant received the most votes to win MVP, about 37% of the votes. Luka Doncic finished second with 33%. Giannis was third with 13%. Joel Embiid and James Harden tied for fourth with 7%. And Steph Curry at finished sixth with 3% of the votes. So basically what the GMs are telling you and telling us is that the guy that they think is going to win the league MVP is the player on the team with the best record. Now, it's not to say that when you isolate Kevin Durant, he's not an MVP caliber player, because he is. There's no question. He's probably the best player in the NBA right now. Is likely the guy who I would vote for. But with that being said, that doesn't mean that he's necessarily the most attractive guy to pick to win league MVP. In fact, when you look at the history of the league, rarely do you see the guys that are featured on kind of super teams winning the MVP. The only example of that in recent memory was LeBron James of the Miami Heat in 2012 and 2013. But the main reason was because there weren't any other competing super teams to really contend with. I mean, you look at the Warriors when they had Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, neither of them won a league MVP during the 3 years that he was there. In 2008, when the Celtics formed their big three with Garnett and Pierce and Ray Allen, none of them won league MVP. So I just caution whether, and I'm concerned that the presence of both he and James Harden will likely offset one another. And that's why, to me, I actually think the guy that should be garnering more consideration for league MVP right now is Steph Curry, given he finished second in the voting last year, and he was an 8th seed. We look at Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook had a fantastic season 2016 when he won the league MVP. In fact, he had recorded the first triple-double for an entire season since Oscar Robertson did it in the 60s. So, but even the Thunder that year were the 6th seed. So the little bit higher. Steph, they were the 8th seed. And so he didn't have enough winning last year to complement the kind of historic offensive run that he was on. But I think that this year, the Warriors with Clay, again, with an entire season of Wiggins, Wiseman, this core group of guys, I think that he's going to continue to have a fantastic season. But the more important thing is it will translate to more wins this year. And I think that last year, had Steph and the Warriors been a 3 or 4 seed, he probably wins the league MVP. but instead it was Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. So, again, I don't have huge gripes with any of these polls right now, but I will say that I don't know if Kevin Durant should necessarily be favored, only because they've got the presence of James Harden, and more so if Kyrie Irving is there as well. It's going to make it so much more difficult for him, I think, to garner all that attention, all that consideration.